What's up, everybody? My name is Cristian Maldonado. I'm a NASM certified personal trainer and nutrition coach, but I did start my journey, as many of you have seen on Instagram, through this phrase that I say is building people, breaking curses, and it comes from just a lot of generational curses that I've seen in my own life that I've had to battle through, and one of those was substance abuse, specifically alcoholism. And I've seen it do a lot of damage to my loved ones, and it's definitely changed my life, and got me to this place where I can help my clients and help different people online through my story. And so today I'm here with my good friend Alonso. I met him at Camille Creek for a career day. He invited me in, and Camille Creek is a continuation school, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said that? Here in Napa County. And, I've seen Alonso go to bat for a lot of youth here in Napa. And, sometimes a lot of those youth, they might come from single parent family households. And, they're looking for guidance elsewhere in the community. And Alonso's been one of those people. So, he's done a really great job with his kids too. Damien and Aaron, they're dope people. And, they're just a little younger than I am, and so. But I mean, it's pretty cool because I think like you've done a great job with them. They're both like amazing people. Like they're
appreciate it.
Like Damien, I think he's like a cool friend. Like I'm proud to call him a friend, and same thing with I don't know. I've spent a little less time with him, but even like when I first met him, I remember even like Vicky was like, man, like Aaron's a cool guy. Like he's like super altito, just like his eyes are like what I'm saying, like
in.
He's really like just a locked in young guy, and he's crushing it out in school right now. So but that's who Alonso is. I've met him also through the Juvenile Justice Commission, which here in Napa County, the court has basically a group. It's volunteers. It's probably like 5, 6, or 7, like 6 of us.
6 or 7, yeah.
It's like 6 or 7 of us, and we meet once every other month, and we basically we get reports from the juvenile hall, and just like based on the conditions of the hall and things that are kind of going around the hall. And every year we do an inspection, and during the inspection we meet with youth. We ask them different questions and stuff like that, just of like what their experience is like in the hall, and if there's any concerns that we think should be addressed, we bring them up to the chief probation officer and the superintendent of the juvenile hall. So that's a good because like it's something that aligns with our values, right? We want a better Napa. For me, I know I feel like I could have gone the wrong route if I didn't have great mentors in the community, just like Alonso is for so many kids. So that's kind of me doing my part and being like, hey man, I was lucky. I had good people in my life, and I didn't fall into the system. So I want to be able to help the kids who are in the system find a way out. And Alonso's been doing that just from his in his profession and in his spare time. So now he's also a licensed family therapist, and he's gonna speak a little bit more about that later on. But I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself based on what you do and everything. So
so thank you, Cristian, for bringing me on, man. So my name is Alonso Medrano. I am a marriage family therapist out here in Napa, California, putting together a small private practice here in town. I also work at Camille Creek. I'm there as the interventions coordinator, working with the youth, with families, and my job. I feel whether it's at a therapist level or at Camille Creek, I feel like it all intersects in so many different ways, and bringing people together, being able to provide support and reconnect them to the community that they belong to. I also have to give shout out to my daughter as well. You mentioned my 2 sons, but I know that she'd be hating a little bit if there wasn't a shout out, but shout out to Zoe as well. I definitely being a parent, a dad, goes hand in hand with everything that I do, even in a professional level, learning how to pivot, how to adjust, how to acknowledge even when you fumbled, and as a parent, you're trying to do the best that you can, but I think that they're all great lessons. So I'm happy to be here. What else can I share? I was born in Mexico. I came here at the age of 6. I've been here in Napa for like 34, 35 years. So I've been through elementary, middle school, high school. I feel pretty connected to this community, and yeah, I definitely, and the things that you mentioned, the Juvenile Justice Commission, definitely that I feel like that's a way to be able to give back and be able to stay informed, and especially with the youth that are there and the families, not just the youth, but the families and the parents and the kids that unfortunately end up on that track.
Yeah.
And remembering that they're not a lost cause. They can also put in some work, and they have to put in some work, not just get stuck. But I'm stoked to be here, man. I'm excited to get this conversation evolving and see where it leads us.
Yeah, no, yeah, of course. And yeah, Alonso and I, we have great conversations all the time after like our commission meetings, and so that's why I was like, I think for it'd be great to have like a conversation on camera and have you like just talk a little bit more about your personal experience, what motivates you, who you are, and how you do in your personal practice. But so one of the things I wanted to ask you was, because I'm always talking about generational curses and breaking generational curses, and we all have a fight, I'm saying, no matter what, like we all have a fight that we're fighting every single day, whether you're a firefighter, CEO, a plumber, whatever it is, like you have a fight every single day.
Yeah.
So what's a generational curse that you've broken in your lifetime?
Man, that's I've been thinking about that, and it's deep and it's complex, but definitely, I mean, one of the ones that I think comes up for me is, so growing up, my dad was an alcoholic. He was an alcoholic for, I want to say maybe like 20, 30 years, maybe, right? And trying to understand him and trying to understand, what I would witness, what I would see, him, me looking for guidance in the male figure in my house, right? And then as an adult, trying to figure that out and knowing, like, essentially, like, I needed that guidance. I needed to, in these moments of whether I am like trying to learn how to be a dad, to trying to learn where the heck I'm going to go to school, what kind of job should I get, my identity as a male of color, as a Mexicano, like all these things that I would fall back and try to understand, like, okay, well, where was my dad in all this, right? And thinking about alcoholism, and he's thinking about his journey. I think there was a pivotal moment. There was a maestro. He's still around. Jerry Tello. So he's based out of Los Angeles, and he's part of this organization called the Compadres Network. And man, this was like maybe like 15 years ago, right? They one of the a community partner here in town had brought him in to do a presentation. It was for fathers awareness, father involvement awareness, or something like that. And his story, man, just connected me and just like grounded me and started building this curiosity. And I'll share that story, kind of quickly. And he was talking about, interesting enough, I think he was younger, maybe like in his teens, and he was asking his uncle, right? Oh, why is my dad, such a, he's a hard ass, he's so mean, he's so this, and he never wants to talk, and he da 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 da. And then his uncle tells him, hey, mijo, like, pulls him to the side. He goes, hey, let's go get un refresco, right? Takes him to go get un refresco. Yeah. And he has this amazing story with his nephew, with Jerry. And he says, let me tell you why your dad is the way he is. So he gives him, says, look, your dad at the age of 12 years old, they lived in Mexico, and the Bracero program started here in the United States. And he was identified in the family as like, hey, you got to go to the States and you got to go work so you can be able to provide for the family. And he goes, your dad was very connected to his mom, and was always in the kitchen and happy and cooking and doing all these things. But he needed to step up and help out the family. And he goes, and it was really hard on your dad because he knew he wasn't gonna, that was gonna be broken right there. Like that bond with his mom was gonna be broken. That connection to his culture, to his part of his essence of who he is, right? At the age of 12. So it was really hard on him. They settled somewhere in the Central Valley, and he remembers, like, no, I'm there with your dad, and we're like in these like chicken coops, basically, where like the farmers would kind of house us and stuff as we worked their land. And every night your dad would cry. Every night your dad would cry, until finally this guy got up, and he got in his face like, hey, cabrón, ¿por qué estás chillando? Why are you crying? And he's just sobbing, and the guy grabs a beer, pops it open, and gives him the beer. He goes, and your dad takes a swing, and he starts drinking, and he goes, hey, eso te va a ayudar. He goes, and that was the last night that I heard your dad ever cry. He goes, he never cried after that. He didn't cry at your grandmother's funeral. He didn't cry at his sister's funeral. And ever since that, they said your dad connected that was the coping mechanism to surviving this hard, time in his life. And so when you talk about like generational trauma, generational stuff, so Jerry talked about how he had to carry that stuff, right? And unless he had those conversations, that dialogue, that understanding, building that compassion, that his dad wasn't necessarily this person. It was like he was made up of all these experiences that had happened to his dad. And now he had this opportunity to be able to be like, okay, how can I dissect this? Take what is essential, take what my dad actually wanted to teach me, which was like, hey, hay que echarle ganas, like you need to, stand up and do what you got to do, to build yourself up. And so I translated that, or that resonated so deeply for me, man, about thinking about my own dad and reconnecting to that part. And, my dad I think he's 30 years sober, man. So he's sober, working his program, he's in a 12-step program. And I see him, man, and I can see now I'm able to have those conversations with him to better understand him now, because now he's sober. And we forget, like, when somebody's has an addiction or is intoxicated, it's like something else takes over. It's not them. It's not the essence of them. And so thinking about those things and building that understanding and that compassion of like, oh, okay, this was my dad under the influence, but now I get to experience him in a way where he's sober and fully him. It helps me understand and disconnect that piece of like, what sometimes unfortunately is seen as the norm in our culture, como Mexicano, that, hey, you grab a beer, hey, we're going to go party. Oh, it's about how wasted you're going to get. And if you're not drinking, then you're being a punk, man. Like, how come you're not drinking? Or, if, no trajiste un 12, un 24, or a 36, or a little mini keg, like, as a man, like, you have these pressures that if you don't show up like that, then you're not really Mexican. You're not really a man. You're not really about your stuff. But no, like, now I feel like I can step in those places because I can see the bigger story behind what we're doing. The essence of people getting together is to get together, have a good time, and sometimes una cerveza, to kind of get people, we're all mutually, under that same agreement that, we're here to have a good time. But then it gets to the extreme where like, okay, now you got to get, plastered, you got to get wasted, it just becomes the norm. And so, man.
Yeah. So with you, based on your experience, like with your dad, so like, I'm glad he's sober. Your dad's around, he's sober. You guys have a good relationship. That's great.
Yeah.
And, but when he was like growing up and seeing him go through all that, so how did that kind of like change the way, you raised your kids? Like, so you never drank, or what were kind of like the measures you took based on that?
So with my dad, I mean, I think I got to see like the extremity, right? Like the extremity of like, okay, that's who he is. That's how he handles himself. And, I was raised in a very matriarchal, family where, my mom was the one that kind of stepped up, and she was the one that kind of like would handle everything. Right. And, unfortunately, my dad would get kind of sidelined. He would just kind of get placed on the side. And so thinking about it, after high school, man, like, I was drinking, I was going out with friends, and, we were hanging out, and I was noticing, but it was hard for me to understand, like, why am I leaning towards this? Like, why, if I know that this leads over here, I have the prime example of what my dad has gone through, what I've had other relatives go through, and I'm still choosing to go. And I was, really conflicted. Like, what is this about? And then it wasn't until, we had our first son, man. And Damon came around, and, there's something there too, about being a dad and about being a parent, where you see this existential piece of you out there in the world going and just so innocent and flowing. And you know that you're responsible for that person.
Yeah.
And so it really makes you check yourself in so many different ways, but obviously it's not just like, that's going to be like the thing that like, oh, this is how I'm going to lead my life. No, like, you really need to look at all that other stuff. Actually, it was around that time, man, like I think it was like maybe 2-3 years after our oldest son was born. that I stepped into that one meeting and I heard, Jerry Deo's story, and I was like, oh, I have questions for my dad. Like, I want to talk to him, right? I want to like get to know that. And I feel like as my relationship was building and I was feeling better understanding, I felt more sure of like, okay, I got to trust my instinct and feeling that intuition of, okay, well, if I didn't have that with my dad, where like a lot of communication or trust or being able to talk about vulnerable things, and shoot, that's where I'm going to invest with my kids, man. Like, that's where I want to tap into and show them, model for them, even though I didn't know exactly. But then I'm like, hey, I started seeing people around me, mentors, professors. I would always resonate back to that story, man, with Jerry Teo. And I would look it up on YouTube, because he's actually on YouTube a couple of times, and just to remind myself, like, hey, vas por un buen camino, man. Like, this is the path. Keep going. It's scary, because it's like usually you would want somebody like right there next to you, but that is how I see myself, in a way, putting myself out there to do that work, so that my kids don't necessarily have to do that work, but they can learn from it.
Yeah.
Rather than like have to like experiment so close with it that it's like, man, yeah, like you can easily get lost in drugs. You can easily get lost in issues with the law, with police, and as a person of color, it's like it just intensifies things even that much more. And as males, I mean, that's it just adds on, man. So
because it amplifies, especially if you're like barely learning like who you are and like how you think and how you respond to anger and like all those soft skills. Like throwing alcohol into that mix is just, it's not a good combination. You know what I'm saying? Not, man. And I think everyone knows it and everyone acknowledges it. I mean, even in music and rap songs, that's like one of the things, right? Like one of like the famous Drake lines is like, I learned enemies and Hennessy are one hell of a mixture. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like someone that's already at the top, like they see that based off like certain things. And I mean, a lot of people, they keep moving that way, or they just have enough money to where they can get protection or they can build themselves out of jail. But I mean, if you're a 16-year-old kid, like that could be your ticket into the system, and you don't have that money to like help yourself out. You're not going to be able to bail yourself out. All those people don't even have a dad to get them straight. You know what I'm saying? Or that maybe their dad's the first domino of that generational pressure. Maybe their dad's under the influence all the time too. So yeah, it's tough. Like but yeah, like you said, I think that's what a lot of people like, maybe if someone out there is listening and they're like, maybe they are struggling with alcohol right now, and you're planning on having a family, or maybe you already have a kid and you're under a lot of stress and you're already drinking, that might be one of those signs to if you're already fighting it and you're already like, man, I probably shouldn't be doing this. Like it's probably, I think your story like kind of proves that you're better off if you think you should be sober, then you should be sober, because it's going to be able to give you a whole nother relationship with your kids. You know what I'm saying? Because no one wants to miss out on that. Like I'm sure you're happy now with the relationship you have with your dad, but I'm sure it was stressful right when he was like at his peak and like really bad. Like you're missing out on your dad. You know what I'm saying? Like I've heard a lot of stories of people talking about how like their dad wouldn't show up to like their sports games or concerts or things like that, or even if they did, like you said earlier, they're a shell of themselves because they're way under the influence. You know what I'm saying? And it's another pendiente that people have. Like I know, luckily Tim, my dad's sober. My dad's sober. He's healthy, and it's like I know it's a lot funner to like be able to take him with us to like we have like a recreation softball team, and it's like we play in the summer. And my dad, like, he plays with us. So it's all a bunch of, like, young dudes. And then it's, like, my dad's with us. But, like, it's fun, because you see him make these crazy, like, athletic plays. And, like, everyone calls him Papi, too. You know what I'm saying? Like, and, like, because we call him Pa or Papi. And everyone calls him Papi. And, like, it's dope. Like, that, I'd much rather take that experience and that version of my dad than the version of my dad where, like, we're out on a Sunday night and I know I have work or school the next morning and I got to worry, like, check my dad is always on 2, he's on 3, he's on 4. Like, that's just not, it's just not the same quality of life. You know what I'm saying?
No, and, man, it's so not.
I'm grateful for, like, my dad being sober, and I'm grateful for all the dads that, turn their lives around, and, like, in your case, like, they serve as, like, a story of triumph, of overcoming and, doing something great, breaking that curse. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. No, I think, I mean, that's, obviously, I mean, none of us would want any of our family members to hurt. None of us would want,
Mm-hmm.
our parents to be not present for whatever, drugs, alcohol, addictions, and so on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just that piece, and also that understanding that, people do have hard lives.
Yeah.
And I think about, like, even I think about the reason, like, why we even came to this country, right? Like, the more I analyze, it's like, yeah, part of it actually, part of it was my dad's addiction. Like, now that I think about it even more, he was actually able to get himself a really good job, and in a what is it called, with Cemex, the big what do you call it, cement company down in Mexico, right? There was and he got himself in there. He was working, but the drive wasn't because he wanted to uplift himself. It was because, from his own words, it's like, well, mijo, es que si no chambeaba, no había dinero para las chelas, or, but it's, I mean, and I feel like, even within that, and even for those that, are still trying to understand, their parents are trying to understand even, like, where they're at, I fall back to that idea, man, that it's like, you got to start with some compassion.
Yeah.
Compassion for yourself, compassion for others, and having an open heart and open mind. And it can be hard sometimes because, I mean, there's trauma in there. There is pain. There is sense of abandonment, sense of, even guilt, or even, like, think about the intensity, man, that it takes to be, like, having to be scoping out, or even the way that your body responds to trauma even before it even happened, because you know that this has happened. You know that on a Saturday night, if you guys go to a quince, you guys go to a wedding, you guys go to a family barbecue, like, when you start anticipating, okay, how many beers? Mm-hmm. Oh shoot, and he's gonna want to drive. Y luego se pone bien, bien grosero, se pone bien agresivo.
The maintenance.
Dude, that stuff is just it's draining, right? And it's easy to get lost in that, and it becomes, like, a responsibility that you don't need to do. And so, I say that it's a balance, being able to do your own work for yourself, and allow people to do their own work. Because I mean, I know, man, that if my dad never, stood up to, to want to do something different, we would be having a very different conversation right now.
Yeah.
But in reality, I praise him and I acknowledge that he decided to do that, because then it allowed me to do the work that I needed to do, which it's so interesting, man. This is coming up right now. As my dad decided to do that for himself, then it allowed me to do the work on myself of, like, who am I as a man, and be able to connect with him. But then also, how do I pass that on to my kids, and how do I change that? So when you talk about trajectories and you talk about things that we carry, esas cargas, right? When we allow people to do the work and we allow ourselves to do the work, we start breaking off some of those pieces of those chains, man, that hold us back, to bring us back to, like, what we think is the norm. Oh, the norm, man, is that on Saturday night or Friday night, if you ain't getting, plastered, if you're not going out for drinks with your homies, or you guys are not doing this, or you're not doing that, then you're not living life to the fullest. And it's not true. That's just the norm of what we think, but it's not true.
Yeah, no, it's not. And even from, I think you brought up a good point too, where, because obviously there's, like, a huge emotional side, and we're going to get into that. I mean, we already have been getting into that, but, like, even from a practical standpoint, and this is what I tell clients too all the time. I'm like, bro, so this is why you got to be sober, because the amount of time and energy you spend, like, just curing a hangover is crazy. And a lot of people, like, with fitness, like, they'll be like, oh, like, macros are complicated, nutrition is complicated. It's like, bro, I've seen, like, 2.0 students turn into Bill Nye the Science Guy when it comes time to cure a hangover. They're like, oh, you have the agua mineral with this, and a cup of milk here, and this and that. You got to take this one first. I'm like, bro, that's complicated. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's not difficult. I mean, that's difficult. Like, knowing, like portioning your plate, like, just like is like second nature. That's like so easy. We all know what a third is. We all know what 2/3 is. Like, we know what that is, but sometimes, but like you said, we're just it's almost like we were indoctrinated into it, you know what I'm saying? And it kind of sucks. And it seems so, I feel like sometimes with alcohol, it seems so like you said, where that one guy in that story, he gave the beer for the first time, and it seems so insignificant. It seems like a one-time thing or something, but that's how things happen. It's like, you know what I'm saying? People who do like life sentences in jail, it's a 30-second act based on an impulse. Like, they feel a certain pain, they feel something, and then it takes 30 seconds to do something that puts them in jail for, 25 plus years, sometimes their whole lives. And it's kind of like the same thing. That's like a life sentence for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? If you see someone while they're down and you give them a substance like that, you're in a way, I mean, you're robbing them of so much. And people, of course now there's all these stories, and we have YouTube and we have content and all this stuff. So you're able to like, the saying like experimentar en cabeza ajena. Yeah. Like you can do that, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes, like, I know for myself, I mean, I'm only 25, so like there's times where I've like logically I've like taken that advice. I'm like, okay, so that's what I'm supposed to do, right? But then I listen to someone's story and I'm like, that doesn't apply to me. And then before I know it, boom, life like kicks me down, and then I'm like, oh shit, that's what they were talking about. And I think all of us can benefit from that phrase, and to just like have some more respect when someone's telling you like their life lesson or a struggle that they went through. Like, you can have more respect to their story, regardless of who they are, whether they're from, if they're Cuban, American, Mexican,
matter, man.
French, like just listen, like there's like, we have a lot more in common than we think. And like hard lessons are like, again, like better learned from someone else's experience.
Man, I mean, that the way you just phrase it, man, that can take us into a whole other couple hours of this, which I'm all good with. And I mean, it's there's that piece too, man, that we often forget, that and that we feel like we have to have the answer for everything. And if we don't know, if we don't have it calculated exactly to what's going to get us the best result, then we're not going to do it. Right. So we have, we can build this mentality of, I need to know this and this and that in order to be able to do that. And that's great. And I think, with YouTube, with social media, man, you can learn how to do everything in it. COVID taught me that, man, that like, we were at home and I was like, okay, ¿qué voy a hacer? What do I get into? What do I do? So I did some research. I learned how to use started working with wood, started building stuff. And I was like, great, like you can do everything and anything. And there's that wealth of knowledge, right? But I also feel, man, that often, and it's interesting you mentioned Drake, and we'll talk we'll talk about that afterwards, because I'm like, I'm gonna let that one slide, man, because no, but it's cool. But so I truly enjoy music, and I genuinely like all kinds of music. Hip hop and rap is always gonna have my heart for so many reasons. One of them is actually that's how I learned English, man. Like, as soon as I got here, I got on 106.1, man, and my sister had got me this little boombox, and she got me all these blank tapes, man, and I was making like little mixtapes, right, with the recording and stuff. I just dated myself of saying cassette tapes, because people would be like, oh, I know how old he is. But that's how I was able to pick up on language much quicker, right? And I'm like, damn, this is cool. Obviously, there was a whole bunch of other language that maybe I should have been using. Pero the essence, man, of what I feel, what I take away from in rap and hip hop is the storytelling. And there's such an art there, man. And just like you said, there's so much to be learned there that we don't have to just go out and experiment. I mean, there's stuff that we have to take, we can, take a risk and do this and do that. But man, there's people around us. And I feel like, especially nowadays, man, with the political climate and just how disconnected we are, that we don't have conversations. We don't like to have this, man, like to be able to have a conversation and be able to be open-minded, curious, have compassion, or even some kind of understanding of what that person's going through. You're totally right, man. We would have so much more in common than we do as in differences. Where they'll say, oh, well, I voted for this person because, well, in my, I'm struggling with this. Like, who would deny here, man, that like gas prices are crazy, that, the cost of living here in Napa per se is crazy. Like, I would say a lot more people than, than not would say, yeah, like that's something that's important to us. But we're so disconnected in those life lessons and people's stories, man, of like and the essence of those stories se pierden. Se pierden. And we forget to talk to our elders, man. We forget to talk to people that have way much more experience, whether like their life took them a whole different path, or even like, or whether they stayed on another path. No, like there's so much that we can learn from all of it, but we don't always allow the space for that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And sometimes, it takes a lot of just ass whoopings to, finally get out of your arrogance and just be like, oh no, I'm gonna listen for real this time. But
you gotta be
and
humble.
I think that's just I think that's just what happens too with like, especially like young guys. It's just like, you got high testosterone. You've got like you think you're invincible and all this stuff, and then
well, you have that, right?
Yeah.
And then on my side, what I've heard often too, man, is this pressure. And I talk about, the kids that are like 16, 17, 18-year-olds, right? All the way to like 20, 24, 25, where like there's this expectation, man, that you're supposed to have all your stuff together.
Yeah.
And that something magical happens as soon as you turn 18, you're supposed to have everything figured out. You have your anger in control, your relationships work out now, you know how to budget your money, you know what about bills, you know what kind of job and career you got to do. There's this heightened expectation that we need to know. And that in combination to what you're saying, right? Like even like the physical aspect, all this testosterone and all this like all this momentum and all this friction that's happening inside of us, and we're supposed to figure out right then and there, man, like you need to know what the heck you're gonna do.
Yeah.
It's a big question to ask.
Yeah.
Pero, I go back to that idea of like, when we don't have those safe spaces, man, that don't include alcohol, that don't include womanizing or talking bad about women or putting down women. Like we don't have a lot of those safe spaces where we can say, hey, as men, man, we can show up and we can have a conversation of how do we hear each other out. And actually, so one of the things that I do at Camille Creek, man, is I every week I facilitate a young men's group, and it's so interesting because in my private practice, so I'll work with the teens, and then I get to work with the adults, and it's surprising, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
When you get to the essence of where they're struggling, la misma cosa.
Yeah, same frame.
It's like, hey, you're over here 16, 17 years old and you're struggling about, these things and you're trying to manage those things. And now you're 25, 30, maybe even 40. Man, I've even worked with people like, that have been here longer than I have, man, that are still struggling with the same concepts that they were struggling when they were younger.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, que modo de cómo vivir, like how to live like that, man, where you continue to carry like these burdens, man, that sometimes we don't slow down and take a look and really look at, what are these things that I'm carrying? ¿Y qué me sirve y qué no me sirve? So I can let go of some of these things. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, yeah, I hear you. Because like I kind of were talking about earlier with therapy, like, I've honestly never done like sit down therapy or anything like that, but I feel like I've gone through a similar process where I'm asking, like I'm making the map, like we were saying earlier, because people hear therapy and they think of like, that's why I took the tissues out of here, because I was like, no, I don't even want that.
Someone's got to cry, man, or else it isn't working.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I feel like it's not that. I don't think it's that, like you sit down and you cry and you let it out and then you just go outside and you're better out. It's not that at all. I think more than anything, it's just a map of like the saying, if you have a problem and you write it down, you identify like what caused the problem, you're already halfway to solving it, right? And I think that's what like therapy should be. It's kind of like a map, like, okay, well, I acted out on my girlfriend and I said these hurtful things to my girlfriend on this day. Why did I say that? Because, she said X, Y, and Z. Well, what did that trigger? Or what triggered an insecurity from a childhood experience? You know what I'm saying? And that's your homework. That's working through that. Now you and your therapist can work through that. Like, well, why does that insecurity still linger around? Why does it still hurt you? And I think that's what like therapy should be. It should be more of like a roadmap and identifying kind of like, where things go wrong and then being able to work on that. Right? Would you say that's like, like a good way to look at it?
Here's So therapy, man, I mean, in general, I mean, I know that in the Latino community, it's often seen as, it can be seen. I would say it's not always, but it can be seen, especially for men going out to therapy. And I'll tell you that in my practice, and in almost the 20 years, man, that I've been practicing, therapy and mental health services, specifically with Latino families, often than not, it's like the dad, the adult male in the family, hesitant, guarded, resistant, but because of what their preconceived notions of what they think it's going to be. Oh, you're going to want me to show up there so I can do family therapy, so then the rest of my family can tell me how I feel, how I'm not doing well, how I'm messing up, and I say that because I'm not making it up. That's often what I've heard. I've heard from couples that I've worked, man, where it's like, no, pues no quería venir, like the wife's like, oh, he didn't really want to show up, and now like we meet 2-3 times, man, and now I can't even get him to stop talking because he's like, man, he's got so much.
Yeah.
So what I say when it comes to therapy, man, is that therapy is what you want to make it. And I say that in the sense that, you know, there's part of it like where you can get insight, right? Like, oh, okay, oh, I did not make that connection that when I do this and this and this and that is actually connected to some stuff in the past. Great. I think it's good to do that work. I think it's good to do the work of like, hey, right now, in the present, you know, I just got into an argument. This and this happened. I did this. Oh, because it triggered this. Or I'm realizing that I'm always so pissed off and I don't know why I'm always pissed off. Cool, we can work on that. The thing is, I think it's really taking a look, man, and really, again, being humble, being compassionate towards yourself, man, of like, hey, I may not know exactly what's happening right now, but am I open enough to show up and go talk with somebody?
Yeah.
And trusting that process. Because in a sense, man, that is, I believe, that is what the essence of like getting together in community and talking. Like I think about, Jerry Teo talks a lot about this, man, about the concept of like la cultura cura. Actually, that's where I brought my shirt, man. La cultura cura, because in a lot of our culture, man, it says like those things are there. Like the essence of getting together and talking about things and what's going on with you. Smaller communities in Mexico will do those things, man, where it's like decisions are made as a collective, as a, you know, the compadres get together. It's just that in our culture, man, it's shifted so much to where like, okay, well, it's not no es un convivio, it's not a get together unless we got some beer, or unless we got a substance, or unless we're talking shit, or unless we're like, you know, degrading other people, or it turns into chisme, or it turns into like nothing productive. But the essence is like, talk to somebody. Yeah. Talk with somebody. And it's not because that person's going to know the answer. To be honest with you, man, I mean, it's actually, I think more often than not, we have the answers. Yeah. We just don't create the space or don't have the time, or sometimes our trauma, sometimes our busy days, sometimes our own subconsciously, man, like we don't make the time. Yeah. You know, I've heard it often. It's like, well, you know, therapy can be expensive. Yeah, therapy can be expensive. But then again, it's like, okay, what's the trade-off, man? Like this can get you this can support you in a trajectory to feel better. But then, you know, we'll be much quicker to go buy and go buy a brand new car, or go spend it on alcohol, or go, you know, and buy a vacation, because we think that vacation is going to solve. I'm sorry, man. Like there is no vacation that's going to solve the stuff that you have unless you like talk about it, process it. And it's complex in so many different ways, because some stuff could be trauma, man. Stuff that you're not even aware that you're carrying until like you use therapeutic techniques that actually help you ground. Then you start noticing, I'm noticing, man, that I carry so much stress in my stomach. I'm noticing that, you know what, at night, man, I can't sleep. My thoughts are continuously racing, which then add on to the fact that I can't sleep at night. The add on then to the fact that I can't focus during the day. That add on to the fact that I'm tired all the time. You see the trajectory, man?
Exactly. So it just doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop. So it's like, hey, donde in here, man, do you have to like put something in it? Therapy is an option. Talking to your doctor is another option. Going and working out, checking out your nutrition. So I don't believe therapy is the solution to all, but it does provide the space, man, to be able to start dissecting this stuff and be like, hey, ¿sabes qué? Have you gone in, when was the last time you got a physical done? Oh, shoot. Well, haven't in a while. You should get that checked out. Hey, I'm always struggling with like headaches and I can't go to sleep. When was the last time you had your eyes checked? It could be it's often a combination of a bunch of things, but if we don't set the time and the intention to work on this stuff, man, we just keep spiraling. You know, I had mentioned earlier, man, like that definition of insanity is like, you know, you want something different, but you keep getting the same result. Yeah. You're like, damn it, I'm trying to work harder. I'm trying to make more money. I'm trying to, you know, do this and do that. Okay, but where are you doing this consciously and like with intention to actually do something for yourself? Or it just turns into like a hamster in a hamster wheel, man. Sigues dando vueltas y vueltas, and then you get frustrated, and then you say, well, you know, F this, man. This ain't helping me. I know what does help me. Yeah. I'm gonna go drink. I'm gonna go do other stuff that, you know, gives me an instant gratification, instant satisfaction that says, hey, you know, you're doing good right now, man. You chill.
And ultimately, it brings up another like set of problems, right?
Exactly. So you just layer up to layer, man.
Yeah, and I think it's hard too, because like you said, the fact that we have the answers already, like that's a hard reality for a lot of people to face too, because I think that we're always being sold like an external solution. Yes. So then people are like, you know, like no, there's no way that it's just like me sitting down and asking myself a series of questions, or sitting with a therapist and working through those series of questions as well. Because think about it like that. So everyone wants like financial stability, good relationships, and like respect in the community, right? Like they want to have like good relationships and stuff. But let's say like you have, and I've dealt with this too, but I've had like a bad like temper issues. But let's say like someone, luckily like during like COVID, like I had a lot of time, so every single morning I wouldn't even get up out of bed unless I worked through like what I did wrong the day before. Like let's say I like talked to someone in a way that I wasn't proud of, then like the next morning I'll literally just like, I'll be laying down, I'll just literally think for like, if it's 15 minutes, if it's 20 minutes, I'll take that time and I'm like, why did I talk to that person that way? What could have gone wrong? What could have gone better? And then, you know, what's the solution now? What's like the tangible solution? And then I'll go hit my day, right? But like, let's say I never did that, and then I get hired as like a forklift operator or something, and then like you said, like I'm up late at night, I'm angry at the whole world, I'm angry at this person's a pussy, this person's a that, this person doesn't know how to do their job, this person's that, like screw everybody, and I'm going to bed like that, and then the next morning I wake up, I'm tired, I go to work, I like crash the forklift or something. Now the person that I don't like at work, because of this made up thing in my mind that they don't know how to work, and they're soft, or they're privileged, or there's nepotism. Now all of a sudden, like I get into it with them. So I mess up the forklift because I'm tired. Now I didn't work through my relationship with this person, and now we're getting into it, and now it's like I'm fired. I can't get a referral. Now you just screwed up all your money. Like you could have just, you know, kicked it in the morning, like for maybe 2 weekends in a row, and just been like, hey, I'm struggling with my relationships. I'm struggling with my sleep. Like, let me work through this problem like this weekend and just put an end to it now before it gets bigger. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think it's just, it's like, it's a hard sell to some people because like I said, we're just every single day you walk out, there's a million advertisements on YouTube. There's all these advertisements for this therapist or like how should I say, like therapy alternatives or things like that. Band-Aids. There's a lot of Band-Aids being sold to us every single day. And, you know, instead of like just taking the time to, you know, address to slow down, the foundation. I think what you're talking about, man, is that fact of slowing down. And, you know, we also have to acknowledge we live in a society, man, that praises people that are on the go-go. Praises people that are, you know, have 2 or 3 jobs and they're hustling and they're doing this, which is great, right? But it's like, okay, how is that serving you internally? Maybe financially it serves you well. Maybe status, it might serve you well. But how is that serving? And everything is everything that you're doing it with intention, and does it match your values? Best, because a veces we get lost in that, and you know, in the social media aspect, man, I've noticed more often than not, especially, you know, after COVID, like this whole idea of euphoria, like things always need to be okay. And this sense of like, okay, you know, you should not be feeling depressed. You should not be feeling sad. You should not be feeling aguitado. You should not be feeling stressed out. Hey, there's stuff that's happening that should cause. I would be more concerned, man, if you showed up and you're like, man, I'm good. Like, there's nothing going on with me. Really? You're not worried about the economy. You're not worried about the politics. You're not worried about all these other things that are happening. You should be. La diferencia. And I would say this, man, across mental health in general. You are supposed to be feeling these things because that is part of the human experience. Where it becomes a problem is where it impacts you to the point where, like, let's say, like that 10-15 minute that you're processing all these things in your head, and you're like, okay, I'm organizing myself. I'm trying to figure this and that. But for some people, it's like that 10-15 minutes turns into an hour, 2 hours, a day, a couple days, to the point like they can't get out of bed. Like, they're severely depressed. They're like, no, man, like I can't even, whatever you're throwing at me, whatever you're telling me right now, it doesn't resonate with me at all. And it's not because, you know, and it's not because it's a lack of, like, you know, they're not smart. It's like, I've worked with individuals, man, highly intelligent individuals, severely depressed. Right? Because, they get locked into their head, and like, that's where they're at, trying to figure out what is the solution. And we forget sometimes that it's like, hey, sometimes you can't just keep, if you're noticing that for you, processing things, for me, that doesn't work, man. And I've noticed I tend to fall into that trap of myself of like, cognitively, I'm trying to think about it. Okay, it could be this, it could be that. But I also know, man, like, okay, hasta un punto, I have to give myself 10-15 minutes, because then if I don't,
I'm just going to get stuck in that. And that's going to affect, como dices tú, the rest of your actions, the rest of your perspective. And we can't always trust what we believe, because our beliefs are based on your emotions, on everything else that that's going on around you, your environment. Have you eaten? Are you hydrated? Like, are you well rested? All those things impact your what your thoughts are.
Yeah.
Just like when you take you take good care of yourself, you got a good night's sleep, you ate some good breakfast, you got a good workout in. You're hydrated. You're on top of your game. Cool. Your thoughts are like, dude, that ain't gonna faze me. Yeah. That dude just cut me off. Cool. I'm gonna keep it pushing because I have 2 or 3 other things. I'm not gonna let that faze me. The flip side is that when you don't do those things, you don't take care of yourself, that dude that just cut you off, that person that just flipped you off, dude, you're like, really? Okay, now I'm gonna go and do this, or I'm gonna go and do that. We have to, man, really look at how do we slow down. Yeah. And it's okay to slow down. People, I hear you on the hard sell pitch of like, wait, you want me to slow down, but I can't slow down because if I slow down, maybe I get flooded with emotions, or I get flooded with, or just things become too overwhelming. Mm-hmm. I believe, man, that sometimes we have to slow down in order to be able to go fast.
Yeah.
Because you become more intentional. You learn, okay, this ain't working for me. Yeah. When I do this and this and that, this doesn't work. How can I pivot so that the next day I can have a different approach to this? I can learn. Or sabes que, I'm learning that I'm getting stuck. My emotions are really getting to me. I'm noticing I'm getting really triggered. It's okay to reach out for support.
Yeah.
Like, no hay nada malo con eso. Because then you don't get stuck. You have other people, other perspectives. Whether it's like, hey, it's a health coach, whether it's a therapist, whether it's your doctor, whether whomever, or a combination of like, but we got to do something different. We can't just stay in the same place and be like, nope, life sucks.
Yeah,
this ain't working out. Nothing's gonna change. Life's just gonna be like that, and the world's out to get me. Yeah. Shoot, that's a hard perspective to kind of hold on to, man, and try to live life to the fullest.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. And that's like, I think it requires a little bit of faith too, because people will like hear that from like a complete stranger, or maybe it doesn't like align with like the people that are in their circle now. But it's kind of like, I mean, that's that kind of sometimes like let's say someone's just in a really, really bad environment and like they're not happy with their situation, but it's like that's also what caused it. You know what I'm saying? So you have to look outside of your environment so that someone can come in with fresh eyes and be like, hey man, so like, I think this is what like put you in this situation.
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure, like, or I should say, what would you? So you said like some people like me, like I was able to slow down and just like after 15 or 20 minutes, I could walk away with closure and then just like attack the day, right? But like, what about those people that they just get overwhelmed with emotions, or it's just too bad? Like, you think those are the ones that should just reach out for help, or like, what do you think that those people should do?
Well, I mean, I think it's a combination, man. I think it's, if you're noticing like you get stuck in your thoughts and you're constantly just processing things, or you think you're processing things, but you're not. You're just kind of like, you're noticing that the more you think about it, you're more pissed off. It's not getting any better. The problem, you're not able to pivot, like you said, like, okay, I can get on with my day. Or you're noticing, sabes que, you just ignore it. Then yeah, man, like you got to look at that, and you got to look at it and be like, okay, what have I been trying? What am I willing to try? And I mean, there's all kinds of like self-books and self-help books and stuff that you can even assessments you can do online, and they can tell you. The thing is, like, I think those things serve a purpose, but if you're genuinely interested, man, in like learning about yourself, not even finding out, but just learning more about yourself and actually learning tools and skills. Tap into a therapist, man. Tap into somebody that can support you. And it's not, and I say this, specifically for man, it's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of weakness. It's actually, if anything, to me, the way I see it, man, is that's a sign of strength. Like to be able to lean into that other aspect of that we often forget. That piece of like, okay, compassion, understanding. Because as you're asking of that from people, you also got to ask of that from yourself. Like, hey, you messed up on this. You didn't do this right. Okay, where can you dust yourself off and get back up again? Not because it's easy to ignore it, right? It's easy to be like, oh, la fregada, that didn't matter. Oh, it's actually my boss's fault, man. Like, or that other person, like blame. You're projecting onto other people. It's really looking back, man, and looking at yourself and be like, okay, where am I at in all of this?
Yeah.
Knowing that I am a human being, knowing that I make mistakes, but I can also acknowledge those mistakes, or I can learn from those mistakes, and knowing and recognizing that también you're carrying on stuff that is probably not even for you to carry.
Yeah.
Sino que, as we talked about, I talked about my dad, and like I go back, I've yet to even further keep going back and like talking about other generations, in my family line. There's you start to get an understanding that it's like, oh, stress, anger, resentment, lack of communication has been such a norm in so many different places. Well, no wonder, like, here we are now, but you have no idea of like, oh, this is how I deal with things, because your family carries all this stuff. So I see it, man, as like, I see it as a challenge. I see it as como un reto, but like a good challenge for yourself to do that work. Just like if you were coaching somebody, if you were training somebody, hey man, like, this is your meal plan, this is what you're working on, or this, what are your goals, right? Like, and they put them up there. Shoot, man, I would put one of those goals up there too.
Yeah.
How can I get not just insight, but understanding of how is it that I function, and what is it that impacts me, and what are some of the things que llevo en mi costal, in my backpack, that maybe don't belong to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we as we begin to acknowledge those things, get some tools, and be able to move those things, we can change the trajectory, man, of like what the future generations are, instead of just, well, as Latinos, this is what we do, as men, this is how we function. No. It doesn't have to be that. We can function in other ways.
Yeah. It's
going to feel uncomfortable. Sometimes even society's going to want us to act maybe the other way. No. We liked it better when you were an asshole. We liked it better when you were like, just this, or this how you dealt with your emotions, by slamming doors and just getting mad. Because there's cultural and societal things, but we can change that, man, if that's what we want. Yeah. But it does require us to really take a look and just be like, okay, what is it that I want? Mm-hmm. And maybe that's not even the question, but do I want something different? Because what I'm doing right now isn't working. Mm-hmm. If you can step into therapy, if you can step into anything with that kind of open mentality, dude, you're like 2-3 steps ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Because like I said, any speaking of like functioning differently, like anybody that like a profession, if they reach out for coaching or help from someone else that's really good at what at their weakness, like they ultimately get better, and they're better for a longer period of time. They make more money, all those things. Like I remember like growing up, because obviously like I played sports, and I remember one of like the very famous like coaching videos at the time was LeBron James working with Hakeem Olajuwon on his footwork, because in the post, like, LeBron wasn't like as good with his footwork, so he reached out to this other great Hakeem Olajuwon, and he helped him. And I remember there was like that video was like everywhere, and they were showing it on ESPN, and it's like oh well, like, and some people were like some old heads would be like, oh, like Michael Jordan never needed help, or like some stupid thing like that. But ultimately, like, LeBron's in his 40s, and he's still the best player on the court. Like the other day I was watching him versus like the Mavs, and I mean you got Kyrie out there, Luka out there, like Klay Thompson, and I'm like, yo, like LeBron is like the best player on the court right now. I mean, he can literally do everything, and it's from work like that. You know what I'm saying? With his health, you know what I'm saying? He's reached out to certain people, and like he pays a lot of money, invests back into himself, but ultimately, like, he's humble enough to say, hey, I need help. You know what I'm saying? He's asking those questions. He's delegating responsibilities. He knows he can't do it all himself, and that's why he's able to like he's just flowing all the time. That's such a man. That's such a good point. There's this mentality, and I say this as a Mexican male that de donde venimos, we come from a very collective culture, meaning that like what affects me affects you, right? And in the U.S., it's a very individualistic mentality. You have to you pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You have to do that. But more often than not, man, we're also reminded, hey, when you can be inclusive, when you can be and look at your resources around you and utilize those in a collective. I mean, just the example you gave, man, of like, LeBron being able to tap into like all these different resources, it just makes you a better rounded person, longevity-wise, relevant-wise. And there's messages in there. And I mean, there's always going to be people like, because that mentality of you have to do it on your own. But it's such a defeating way of looking at things, because if you put all the pressure on yourself that it's up to you and only you, you're gonna be humbled, man. Yeah, you're gonna be humbled very quick. You're gonna especially
especially like when, when you care about people, especially when you have your own kids, especially when, you start seeing your own parents, start to age, and you're like, oh shoot, that affects me so much.
Yeah.
And there's nothing I can do for them. But because my mentality was to just be individualistic and just grind, and just figure out, and I'm sure, man, like there's top-notch CEOs out there that are making a ton of money and are successful in their own way because they've had, but I would even say, man, even those people have had to reach out to other folks and be like, hey, where can you invest? Or hey, how did you grind that? How did you do this? So we can't and we shouldn't, man. That's like a big trap for us to think that we can only do it on our own. And if because then the only person you have to blame is yourself. Yeah. And then that's just self-defeating because then you're like, oh, I couldn't do that. I didn't do that. It's like, no, canijo, you didn't do it like that. But what other way can you do it?
Yeah.
When there's a will, there's a way. It can buscarle, and that comes back to the values and the values and the guidance, man, the teachings that are, that your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents taught, man, like that. Those are the messages that never really make it here because we don't open up the space for those things. But we come from a culture, man, donde we highly get recognized because los mexicanos, trabajan duro, but no es siempre de trabajar duro, man, but we also have to learn how to work smart.
Yeah.
Because el trabajar duro, it's like, well, yeah, but then you're breaking your back, or then what happens when you can't physically do that job anymore? Yeah. How about instead of just working here, how about if you own that place? Yeah. What if you turned it into your own thing? What if you did that where you actually were able to step up and keep moving up so that you're not just, you're not just working at that restaurant, but hey, you know what? You're actually thinking about putting your own, place together. Breaking that social norm, man, that we think que nomás hasta aquí we're supposed to make it. It's like, no, it's more than that.
Yeah, exactly. Or even just managing yourself and your spare time is even better because they're like, especially like with these like heavy like blue collar jobs, a lot of them they're getting paid really well. Yeah. It's like like at that point it's like, bro, be proud of what you're doing. Yeah, everyone's talking about college and all these different things, but it's like, bro, you're getting paid a lot of money. Yeah. You didn't get into like heavy debt. Like right now at this point, it might just be you just gotta like watch yourself after work with like the bar or happy hour and stuff like that. And a bunch of guys, like a bunch of single guys, you might get in trouble or stuff like that. You just gotta mind yourself and just manage like little things like that. You know what I'm saying? But at that point, like you're sitting pretty comfortable. So at that point, like you made it in that profession. So just be able to manage yourself so you can do it for a long time. Like save well and like I'm sure like you should appreciate that. Form of, how should I say it, like stability, you know what I'm saying?
Right, because you're passing that on to the next generation, man, because maybe that wasn't your experience with your parents. Maybe that wasn't for that person that's in that blue collar job. Mm-hmm. Maybe, they fell into that job because they knew they needed to really hustle because how they were brought up or their experience was like there was no stability. Great. Yeah. So now you kind of cemented that block now, right? Yeah. Now you pass on that one to the next generation and next generation to continue to build that so that you're not always having that's where I feel like sometimes we get stuck. You have like, generational, what would you call it, man? Like, back in the 80s, they would call it like, families that were stuck in Medi-Cal or food stamps and stuff like that. Like families, like generations and generations of, they always use food stamps and they always use that. So it's how to change that trajectory, man, so that you're living to where you want to be living to the capacity, the best capacity that you can. Because that's fulfilling. And that goes hand in hand to your mental health. If you're fulfilled, if you're happy, if you're content with what you do, I do think that there's a ton of money to be made and there's ways to do it. But I often tell my own kids, man, it's like you also have to find a place where like you like what you do and it fulfills you in a way that nothing else would ever fulfill you. You may not be making, 200,000 a year, 300,000 a year. But hey, with what you're making, that fulfills you as a person. Guess what? That's gonna make you feel you're actually gonna probably enjoy your life better, and then you're gonna be that better of a person out to everybody else, including yourself. Yeah. But you have to really look at what fulfills you, what drives you.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff. And at the end of the day, like just staying on topic for a little bit with the people that work those hard jobs, it's like you're making your hard work worth it, right? Because if you go out and you have like some of those generational curses that we've seen where like with like the alcoholism, for example, like you could throw that all away with one bad night at the bar. You know what I mean? It's like a fight, a car accident, things like that can really throw things away. But speaking of like strength, speaking of just like strength and dealing with challenges, and like kind of like from a cultural standpoint, how like we're made, like you said, like Mexicans are always known as like tough, hardworking, and just people who can fight. You know what I'm saying? So the way, like you said, that's why a lot of people, they see like getting with your buddies and, you know, drinking alcohol, that's kind of like the pinnacle for a lot of people, and that's where like people go to talk about their wins and losses. But something that like I've done, and I don't know if you want to like dive a little deeper onto like from a cultural standpoint, like why alcohol is so big, but something that I do like with all my guy friends, like pretty much every time that I hang out with my guy friends, it's working out. So you know, like we'll talk through problems, we'll talk through, like I said, wins and losses, and but we're always working out, you know what I'm saying? So sometimes, like most of the time, it's like pads, so like boxing workouts or just going to the gym, you know what I'm saying? And it's like you're doing something active, and you can work through your problems with like a solution oriented mindset, you know what I'm saying? Because you know, you're getting under the bar, you might do your set, you'll challenge yourself, like, oh, good work, bro, like you're like reaffirming like the friendship and all that. But and I guess that fist bump after a PR, it's similar to like someone you just had a great accomplishment at work and you do salud or whatever, you know what I'm saying? I feel like just like those little subtle things are like super huge. But that's something that doesn't make me insecure, you know, because like you said, a lot of people, they get insecure about their like manhood and their Mexicanism or whatever you want to say. And I'm like, to me, I'm like, bro, I'm a dual citizen. When my cousins see me in Mexico, like my little ones, like I'm telling them, hey bro, let's work out, let's play basketball. Like they're tired, they're fighting themselves, and like they see me doing the same thing. So I'm like, at the end of the day, like I'm fighting too, you know what I'm saying? So I had to overcome, it took a lot to overcome the alcoholism. Now it's second nature to say no to a drink or whatever, but at first there was some resistance from some certain people, and then obviously with like my real friends, it was like full on support. But you know, I kind of just wanted to share that because like there's so many different ways to like showcase your strength and prove to yourself that you're strong. And I think like ironically, that's one of the ways, you know what I'm saying? It takes a lot to say no in that culture. And, you know, it takes a lot of confidence to be able to just stand on your own 2 feet and say like, hey man, I don't do that. You know what I'm saying? I've seen that. I've been to enough funerals. Like I haven't gone to too many funerals, to, you know, cry over people who died of old age. Like most of it's been tragedies, like unfortunately, but then at the same time, that's what like makes me learn, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I don't know if you want to speak on that, on like just why do you think that alcohol's like become such a like, why is it so ingrained like in our culture, and why do like, how have you dealt with that? Like were you ever pressed like by friends growing up like to like, oh like Alonso, come on, drink, and maybe you say no, or like what's your experience been with that?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, when I was in college, man, it kind of clicked for me in trying to with this Professor Barajas out at Sac State. I was finishing up my sociology degree, and you know, he talked a lot about la conquista, and I was like, well, what the hell is he talking about, right? And you know, once I made time to go and explore more and really dive into it, you know, the connection that has been made around, you know, the impact that the conquista from the Spaniards, you know, had on Mexico and the mestizos and so on, and talking about generational trauma, right? And how that lingers on to, you know, being people being treated the way that they were treated, and cultures being, you know, basically, you know, the Aztecs and how just basically the dismantling of you know, Mexico and South America. And so that gave me like a little bit of like a social, like a historical context of like, okay, so what? Because I'm like, I've had the same questions of like, okay, ¿de dónde viene esto, man? Like, you know, I mean, it also doesn't help that, you know, well, in our community or you know, there's so many different types of beers, and now like mezcal is like huge. Every freaking Hollywood actor seems to have like some kind of connection to you know, to a mezcal company or tequila, and you know, and there's a piece though, I think, and I've seen it at some times, man, where and actually a Bud Light commercial reminded me of this out of all things, man, and it said todo con medida. And I think it was probably the only time that something like that resonated to me around alcohol. Of like, you're right, it's not a bad thing. You know, having a drink is not a bad thing. Having a shot is not a bad thing. Celebrating, dude, like, you know, you're watching a soccer game, or you know, you went to go see Mexico, the soccer team, hopefully not lose or whatever, and you're at the stadium and you're like, hey, una chela, you know, cool, and you're there and like, it's all good. But la diferencia, man, and that's where like I feel sometimes I would kind of kind of step out, and then sometimes I'd feel kind of alone in that sense, in that social context of like, oh, now people are just getting like wasted.
Now it's abuse.
Now it's like, wait a second, dude, like this went from like we're having a really good time. I have a couple times, man, that we went to go see a soccer game, which to this day I really question even like taking my own kids, man, and even two of them being adults to go watch a soccer game, a Mexico soccer game, because it's different, man. Like it's I don't know. Alcohol takes over in a certain way where I feel like it takes away from the actual essence of being there and celebrating.
Yeah.
And so that has been a piece where todo la medida. Like, yeah, like we'll go. I'll have a drink, man. Like enjoy it. And then like I know I'm good. Like, but then I start feeling it and I start seeing the difference of like, oh, this has turned into like este va a poner hasta la madre. Yeah. And now this dude's gonna start crap with these other people. And it just changes the dynamic of like the game, right? And I make that connection, man, to like social settings. Okay, you're getting together with family, you're getting together, a big party or whatnot, and you start seeing the difference between like those that are there to like convivir and have a good time and so on, to where now it turns into an abuse, and you're like, that's the shift. So. I mean, like the way that I see it, it's like I take it away from a judgment of like, oh, people that drink, they're bad. Yeah. No. I feel that it's your intentions behind drinking or what drinking does to you. Kind of like somebody working out, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you can look at somebody that's like, okay, in the gym, what do they call them? Gym rats or right? Oh, they're in there, man, and like they're working out and they're, just super freaking, stoked, and that's all they do and that's all they want to do. There could be an extremity to that también.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, socially, it might be a little bit different. That might be more accepted than somebody like, next to that gym, totally drunk on the side, passed out on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
Pero, yeah, I mean, it is in our culture, pero es a la medida. Because I've been in settings, man, where like I would get anxious at times when I was younger. We'd go to a quince or we go to a wedding, and then like I feel it, man. Just people like, okay, this is different. People are no longer dancing. Like there's a couple push, like it almost looked like a mosh pit. And I'm like, wait a second, this went from like someone's wedding or someone's quince to now like people getting in fights or like, and they're like in between families or this stranger showed up and now has a knife or like just dude. I was like, wait a second, do you know how much people spent? Like they had. We were at a wedding. No, we were at a quince one time, man. With when I was younger, man, and I was dating my wife. We were in high school, and I remember they had this banda, right? And it was bomb, man. I mean, like they had like 15 people members, and they're playing. They got everything, and it sounds so good. And we're out there dancing, and it's like cool. But I felt something, man. Like okay, it's like it's a good vibe. We weren't drinking or anything like that, but I could tell. The people that were hovering by, by the kegs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Man, all of a sudden we're there, and the floor where we're dancing, I'm looking down, and there's blood on the floor, and I was like, "What is happening, dude?" I started getting anxious. There's a dude on the floor. People are still dancing, mind you. Like there's blood on the floor. People are still dancing, and then somebody screams. A couple other people scream. The lights go on. People are passing out. Well, somebody ended up getting shanked and was there, passed out. Or not passed out, but was really hurting on the floor. And the whole thing just changed in dynamic. And that is like, that in a sense to me has always been kind of a reference of like that difference and shift from like when things are going well into where alcohol gets abused. And then it gets abused to the point where like grown ass adults, man, like can't handle their stuff. And it's like, and it's not even like, even that phrase that I just said, I take that back because it's like, and I often would hear, oh, you can't handle your drinking. It's not about you handling it. It's alcohol. Like, dude, like you take it. There's nowhere in here to be able to measure like, oh, that tolerance. If you have a higher tolerance because you're a bigger man, you're a stronger man, you're more worthy to be a man. It's like, dude, it's all this testosterone, like this ego-driven kind of drive to it. Pero yeah, like those, like part of those experiences, which I think about often, not often, but like. They resonate in like, okay, the impacts, man, of like when things get out of control where, alcohol takes over and people kind of, abuse it in a sense. A good friend of mine, reminded me una vez, me dice, well, back in the day, like alcohol was considered spirits.
Yeah.
And the word behind spirits was because, you know, they believed that like it was basically like it would get you to a place where like you would be able to see spirits and like everything was so much more free flowing, and that's where that word comes from.
Someone else. Yeah.
In a sense, and I've seen it, man, where people just shift, and you're like, wait, we were having a good old time, dude, and now you're trying to go pick a fight with somebody else, and you're trying to do this, or you're trying to do that, or you're totally depressed, man. Where like now I'm wondering, like, do you want to hurt yourself, man? Like, and again, being in those settings and being able to juggle those things as a teenager, as a young adult. You know, it was often isolating, man, because like I wasn't the one that would show up with a 12 or a 24 or a 36 pack of beer to, you know, to a party, a backyard party, even though that was the norm. Like I would sit in the group of men, man, and it was great. Like the first hour, we're having great conversations. No, pues que viste la pelea de so and so, that you know there was a boxing match, and even some political stuff and this and this and that. And then like an hour, 2 hours, man, the alcohol kicks in, and it's a different conversation. Yeah. And, you know, often it's like I felt like, well, I can't step into that place because, you know, they're telling me, hey, échate otra, ándale, que te va a pegar la mujer, or, you know, this is gonna. Yeah. It's like, actually, no, man, but like I'm good. Like I'm driving out. I don't want to get this wasted. Like you guys are like on some other stuff. And I've been able to see the other part, man, where like I've been with family in Mexico and we're having drinks. And that's all it is. Se acabó la noche. Hey, man, get home safe. We'll do some other stuff tomorrow. And it's good. So I've been able, luckily, man, I feel like I've been able to see the difference where, like, when you can, como dicen, like, tú puedes tomar el alcohol y que no te tome el alcohol, in a sense. But I don't feel like it's an essential thing. If I'm going to go out and hang out, we need to have drinks. No, man, like, I'm good. I'll take a water, man, or I'll maybe even get a soda. I might, well, like I said, man, I'm more onto the food scene, like, all right, KI, or like, you know, where can we go and do this? But, yeah, alcohol is definitely a driver, man, for, you know, socially. Do you fit in? Do you not fit in? Are you a part of this? Are you not part of that? It can also, you know, it also highlights, you know, who is really there for you, man. Like, what are some actual friends? What are not some friends? And or even relatives. Like, who are some cool relatives with you? And some that are like, no, man, no. Only when you're on, or nomás cuando traes una botella, or only when you bring alcohol, like, we're cool. Besides that, it's different.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because the reason, like you said, the why behind why you're drinking, and then the boundaries you have around it. Because, like, for example, with you, like, you knew that at the end of the night, I'm gonna leave at 10, and then that's that. Yeah. And, you know, like, again, like with athletes, like, you'll see it, like, people will celebrate like a championship, and they're all drinking, you know what I'm saying? But then by the time they're on, like, Good Morning America on Monday, they're like now the party's over. Like, you know, something like the party's over. Like, we had our time to celebrate, but you know, the party's over. Like, we got the drafts coming up, like free agency. Like, we're back to work. Like, we had our fun, but let's keep going. You know, and again, a lot of those people that can do that, they're healed themselves, and they're like confident individuals, and I feel like they've opened up, and they have like all these like different problems already addressed. So then when they drink the alcohol, it's just drinking alcohol. And a lot of people, like you said before, like, people will use it as like if they're in pain and they're drinking, and that's their thing, and that's where it's kind of
they, you know, in a sense, it's like how do you use, you know, how do you use drinking? You know, do you use it as a way to allow yourself to feel things? Because I've seen it, man, where like people will hella drink, and then all of a sudden they're talking about things, and you're like, Canijo, why weren't you talking about these things when you were sober? Like, we could have a totally different conversation right now. Or, you know, someone who's really, you know, bringing up resentments that they're carrying, or how their relationships are going. It's like, great, like, those things are there. Yeah. But you can't process those things. You can't do any work with that when you're under the influence. Just like in therapy, if somebody shows up that's intoxicated, I can't do therapy with them, man. It's like, that's part of the issue. That's part of the concern. But we can't be comparing ourselves to other people, like how they, you know, during the Super Bowl, man, like all these people were popping, you know, expensive bottles of champagne. Yeah, man, but that's how they use drinking. Yeah. You're using it on a like, hey, I'm bored, let's drink. Hey, I'm gonna go party, let's drink. You're looking for anything. Oh, the sun's out, poo, let's drink. Hey, the sun's going down, let's drink. You've learned to utilize drinking in a way that fulfills your life, rather than this other person's like, oh, dude, that's like a little segment of my life, and I can manage it. Or I got the money to go, you know, and go to a rehab and be able to handle that, which the majority of us don't.
That was golden right there. I think that's probably like as far as something that someone could learn, like that's huge. Because like you said, like some people, like I hear it all the time growing up with cannabis, like people would be like, oh, like, I smoke weed, like, look, so-and-so, like Michael Phelps smokes weed. It's like, Michael Phelps also trains every single day of his life for 6 hours in the pool, and he has parents that funded his journey from the beginning. It's like, bro, it's like,
hey,
it's
different
a hard
context, man. You
yeah.
and that's the thing. You can't compare yourself for, you know, and also like I go back to like, how does that serve you?
Yeah.
So for him, it might help him maybe, you know, to chill out, maybe, or whatever. And you might be like, hey, it helps me chill out, but it also gets you in trouble. Oh, and you're on probation, bro. So actually that violates your probation. Oh, wait a second. And then, you know, you're wasting how much money in that, but then you tell me you're broke and so it's not working for you.
Yeah.
He doesn't have those issues. You do. When you smoke, this happens. For him, it's like, cool. You know, he makes enough money or it doesn't become an issue. But even then, man, like, there's often stories too, right? Of people that are professionals or famous people that things get out of control.
Yeah.
What was that guy's name, man, from that one show? Matthew Perry, the guy from Friends, one of the guys in that show. He died of an overdose, man. And like, they're like, you know, they're going back and because the type of therapy that he was providing, he was getting was actually infused with, like, they were giving him
substances,
stuff like that as a form of therapy, and ended up overdosing. Mac Miller, the rapper, same thing, man. His stuff was laced with some other stuff, and so it's like I often go back and be like, you know, well, we also can't just stay back and say, well, you know, those people can do it. No, man, they're also struggling.
Yeah,
but we can't just assume that, you know, well, they have all their stuff together, that's what I need to go. No, Canijo, like, you need to take some time to look at yourself and look at what you want. What work do you want to do? You can live and you can be thinking, oh, I want to be like this person, like that person. But then you're not living your life. You're not even living yourself. You're not learning anything about yourself. You're just imitating. And that's a big pitfall, man, because you can't imitate, you know, living like somebody else because you don't know them. You don't know who they really are. You don't know, you know, what they're about. You don't know what their values. You don't know what generational trauma they're carrying. You know, you don't know any of those things. Because you only see them on TV or you hear them on the radio or you read about them. It's like, no, man. Unless you know somebody hand to hand and you've had conversations and you've grown up with them and you can hear where they're coming from, then maybe you have an opinion. You have an idea of who they might be.
Yeah. No, exactly. But that was really good. And then let's see. So we talked about substance abuse. What other because you work with a lot of couples who are going through divorce or like post divorce, right? So what other like coping mechanisms have you seen that people use like when they're experiencing a hard transition in life? Like what's another like coping mechanism that is just a big pitfall? Like what else have you seen?
One of the ones, man, I would say would be denying, denial. Denying that what you're feeling is true, denying that, you know, that what happened is true, denying that, you know, not being genuine and honest with yourself of like whether you are one of the partners that was going through the separation or divorce, or you're a kid that's going through that, or whatever part of it that you're a part of, that is that denying any of that, you know, really pushing that stuff to the side, or looking at blame, or looking at shaming, or looking at beating yourself up, because again, man, it's like, it's such a bigger context than just what happened. And that goes into everything, man, whether it's somebody getting a divorce, somebody going through some stuff. It's like, you know, family dysfunctions or, you know, desacuerdos en la familia. It's like, yeah, you can take your segment, but if you're not really wanting to look at it and willing to look at, you know, what are you contributing? What is your truth? How is this impacting? And you're not willing to talk about it, then ahí te quedas. And then like that becomes, you're kind of like talking, you'll be there 5, 10, 15 years later on talking about the same thing over and over because you still are holding on to whatever happened there because you weren't able to process it. Communication's another big one, man. Like, you know, we shut down. We feel like, no, well, this is, you know, I can't communicate, or I'm feeling all these other emotions that if we try to put them to the side or ignore them, or we try to, you know, muffle them down with weed or alcohol or other drugs or other things, then we're not really listening to what's happening. We're not even present. We're just kind of like there trying to cope and trying to get by, and we ignore things. And I do believe that when we ignore things, they build up. They don't go anywhere. Whether it's resentment, whether it's something that, you know, happened to you, whether it's trauma. There's this really good book, man. It's called The Body Keeps Score. And it talks about trauma, how like your own body will hold on to trauma and will actually respond and have the same negative impacts in your body, even though like just giving, like if you remember it, or like you're in a similar situation. So like your body is still like holding on to those things. Como fregados no is it not going to feel, anything traumatic or anything like life changes that happen if you don't process them, if you don't talk about them. And it's not to be like, oh, I'm okay with it. But no, like you can recognize that this happens, and then you got some tools to do something about it. Well, I've noticed I get triggered when this and this happens, or I notice that when there's arguments, this happens. Great. What are you going to do? Well, you got some tools. Well, this is where I take that 10, 15-minute break, Matt, and I process my day. I organize myself. Okay, great. Or this is where, before I start my day, I go work out. Or this is, where I am implementing, trying to get a better night's sleep, or I am trying to do some journaling, or I'm trying to talk to my therapist, man, on a weekly basis, investing in myself in a way that helps me, rather than just kind of ignoring it and hoping that it goes away, or, or dismissing it, that is not important. It's important, man. The things that happen to us are important.
Yeah. Big time. And would you say that you've, when it comes to like relationships, because also, like I said, like you've talked a lot about like how emotional it is and kind of like how it holds people back, and we've like gone into that a long time, but also from like a practical standpoint, like having a bad relationship at home is just like, it's such a big limiting factor in your success as well, right? Like we've seen, I remember there was this CrossFit champion, and he was saying like, hey, at the highest level of competition, like if you go to the top 15, like 1 through 15, they all have the same training regimen. They all train for the same amount of hours every single day. They all eat the same. They all care the same. But the biggest difference that you'll see with like the top 3, and especially with the champion, is that they have a much better support system at home. And, because when you get home and you're tired and you're arguing with your spouse over X, Y, and Z, like it's hard to get the sleep at night. It's you're mid competition and you're thinking about like some BS that went down at home last night. So I'd say like sometimes like fortunately, like my parents have been together for 29 years, and like my girlfriend and I, like we've gone through a lot of hard times like in a short amount of time. We've been dating for like 3-4 years, but I feel like we've like been able to work through a lot of things, and like we see a future together. But like what would your advice be to someone who let's say someone's in my position and they're like 4 years into a relationship, maybe they're not married yet, but they're starting to see like, hey, like I come home and every single night, like we're getting into it every single night. There's a disagreement over like petty things. I'm not able to perform at work how I should be. Like where do you like draw the line as to like, all right, maybe it's time to separate and move in a different direction? And like, how do you know that it's like, hey, we're struggling right now, but we can work through it? Like, how do you know when there's hope, and how do you know when there's no hope?
That's a huge question, but let me see if I can break it down a little bit. So one of the things I would say, man, would be this: knowing yourself, right? Knowing yourself, knowing your intuition, knowing your gut instinct, trusting in yourself, and also having trust in that relationship, that trusting that person's also trusting their intuition, trusting their values, and bringing that in together, and trusting, and not trusting, but also communicating that hey, you're doing your work, or we're noticing these things, making time to like talk about those things, and noticing those things together. Like, hey, I'm noticing, man, that like I get home, man, and like I feel like I'm right away like on you about something, or I'm right away. Do you notice that too? And starting a dialogue there, because relationships are, I mean, they're complicated. Because you have two different worlds coming together with, again, as we started this conversation, man, about all the things that we carry. You're bringing two people from two different worlds, or two different, almost like two different worlds, I would say, with their own stuff, man, that either they process or they haven't processed, things that they value, things that they don't value, things that strengths that they have in areas where they can improve on, and you're trying to put this piece together, and you're like, but we have the best of intentions, and I love her and she loves me, and and we love each other, and we want to really make this work, because look, we've been doing this, we've been doing that. Like, that's good. But remember what I had mentioned earlier, man, like intentionality, being intentional about what you're doing and being intentional about even slowing down the process and like, hey, let's talk about this. And then, and if it looks like, Sabes, it's something that, with our skills that we have right now, we're not able to kind of work through it just yet, then let's tap into it and let's go talk to somebody. Let's figure this out together. Obviously, when también you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink water.
Yeah.
And that goes for both ways. Like, you can't force somebody to want to stay in a relationship, and you shouldn't, and nobody should be forcing you to stay in a relationship, but you also need to have those conversations before, ahead of time. And not that it's like, oh, it's all go lucky, and relationships don't go through like different stages and stuff like that. Relationships are supposed to be evolving, but we're supposed to be evolving together in one way or capacity. And we have this foundation of like, this is what matters to us. This is what the essential things are for us. These are my limits. These are my boundaries. These are the things that I'm willing to, work through. And then these are the areas where, like, sabes que, when it gets to this, when it gets to you, you chasing me around with the bat, that's like my no. When it gets to you trying to hit me, or I'm trying to hit you, then that's a no. Or when I'm noticing, like having those dialogues, man, which again, I don't know what your upbringing was like with, what you noticed in your parents, but I can tell you, man, my parents never had that. Like, there wasn't like, hey, vamos a platicar, about this and that. No, it was like my mom would like handle her business. She would do what she needed to do. And, and the bills were paid, but I never witnessed like my parents being able to have like a dialogue to be like, hey, vamos a poner esto juntos, or, or even like them having their own conversations. Not that I needed to be part of it all, but for them to be able to have those conversations of like, hey, there's transitions. Okay, well, we're planning now to have kids. Okay, well, we're going to have kids. Okay, well, yeah, you're raising kids. It's different raising kids when they're young to when they're like middle age to when they're adults, because you're still parenting even when they're adults, but your relationship continues to evolve. And so, really trusting the fact, man, trusting yourself and trusting your instinct and having that communication, como te digo, like communication and dialogue is such a strong tool, man, to be able to really decipher and be able to break down what is it that we're really talking about? Because you know what? You might be getting pissed off with the fact that I'm always nagging at you, but you know what? This is why I'm nagging at you. Because you left all your shit over here, man, and we had talked about all these other things that were happening. But the reality is that it's not even about those things that are happening. It's actually about the fact that I don't trust that you were going to do that.
Yeah.
I didn't, you told me you were going to do that, man, and you didn't, and you didn't come through. You didn't do your part. Or you know what? We're going through these changes, and I don't trust that, we can have this conversation, or all those deeper meaning, essential things that are needed. So it's not about like, oh, dejaste la ropa, or you didn't do this or you didn't do that. It's like, no, what is the deeper meaning behind what you're saying?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because that is like, it's very similar to like when you're raising your kids and you're on them about like, oh, they didn't pick up this, or they didn't do their chores, you didn't take out the garbage. Okay, we can talk about all that stuff, right? But what is the actual meaning?
Yeah.
Was that I'm trying to tell you to do something and it looks like you don't care. Oh, okay. Very different conversation than saying, ¿por qué no sacaste la basura?
Yeah.
Cabrón, te dije que la sacara. I told you to take it out, man. I already told you 3 or 4 times, but then they're like, they'll block you out because they're like, you're already going to start your shit. But we never really get to the point of what is it that it means. It means that, hey, as a family, we got to collaborate. I need you to do your part. You need me to go to work and do this part. I need you to go to school. I need, and the same thing with your partner. Hey, it's like an unspoken expectation that you do your part and I do my part, but we can't just keep it unspoken. We got to talk about it.
Yeah.
Hey, these are the next steps, right? What are we working on? What does the next 5 years look like? What do the next 10 years look like? And acostumbrarse, like to kind of build that muscle, to build that routine, add it on to your workout as a family, as a couple, because often we don't. We just like, well, you have the best of intentions, right? Yeah, we're doing this together, right? Okay, cool. But we can't just leave it up to like, hopefully this works out together. Yeah. Especially when there's tools, man. Especially when there's resources.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So you'd say like, as long as the trust, because the compatibility is a given, right? You'd have to be compatible, but as long as there's trust and effort, you'd say like there's hope for a relationship. Yeah,
there's hope and and there's trust. And I mean, somebody can put effort, man, into like a relationship, right? Mm-hmm. But you also have to know, and you also have to be willing to like recognize this. How es que hasta este punto, that's as much as I can do.
Yeah.
And that's a more, como te digo, like, that's such a bigger strength in a sense to be able to call that out for yourself, to know that about yourself. Mm-hmm. This is my limit.
Yeah.
This is as far as I'm able to do. I'm doing all these other things. I'm grinding out in all these ways, but this is as much as I'm able to do.
Yeah.
That's it. Because you also can't, then the other extremity is that you can be in a relationship where, like, it's, you know, people call it like a toxic relationship, where like you think that there's a connection, and it might be driven by whatever, by intimacy, by sex, by, you know, by just even not feeling alone and all these other things. But if you're not, if you don't have the limit to it of what you're supposed to be, if you both are not on the same note, man, of what you guys are wanting to work on, and you don't know your limits tampoco, or you're not willing to look at your limits, then you're gonna be continuous again, that constantly doing the same thing over and over, hoping, oh, hopefully this time she'll get it. Oh, hopefully this time he'll understand. No. Like, we need to be more intentional, more purposeful, and that's where therapy comes in, man. That's where, like, specific tools, specific ways to be able to, a therapist can support in that aspect of taking what you have to say and what that other person has to say and finding action, because it's hard, man. Like, two people can be having the conversation and yelling at each other and saying, no, all these things, and you're hoping that person gets it because, oh, I'm going to raise my voice louder, or I'm going to, you know, say something to kind of be a little more demeaning because you hurt me. But we're not talking about, hey, man, I really feel like you're not hearing me out. That's why I feel like I got to raise my voice. Yeah. And now I feel like what you just said right now to me was very dismissive, and you hurt me. So now I'm going to hurt you, and I'm going to say this thing about you. But now we're arguing about how you insulted me and how I felt insulted, and forget about whatever you guys actually wanted to talk about. And those are like spirals that are easy to get into, man. So, I mean, especially in relationships, it's in relationships with people and relationships with yourself. Yeah. That's where it's good to tap into, man, to get some support.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, as we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd want to talk about, any specific issue, any like, because I feel like you gave a lot of great advice, and just like, obviously, like, we all have, as humans, none of us are perfect, and we all bump our heads, and that's kind of what makes certain lessons stick, and we have our strengths and weaknesses. And you know, I think, like, for me, it's helpful to hear kind of your experience, and it's just like I've said before, there's so much similarities. Like, that's basically the same story, and I've seen both sides of the coin where alcoholism loses, and I've seen the other side of the coin where alcoholism wins. And you know, I think that's probably where most of my pain's been, is like where alcoholism wins, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, yo, I do not want to be around that, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like this conversation, like, definitely, I think it'll help a lot of people, like, listening, who are maybe in that dark place, and like, because I think, like, where some certain people need to wake up is like, why am I drinking, right? Or why am I using X substance? Because some people are using it to fill a hole, and that's where it becomes abuse, like, very, very quickly. And then some people are just using it as, you know, recreation with boundaries and self-respect, and then and they're fine. But sometimes those two people, they don't mix, you know what I'm saying? You can't, you got to be careful who you hand that drink to, you know what I'm saying? Because if you hand that drink to someone that's in a dark hole, you could be setting them up for failure. And but at the same time, you know, you hand that drink off to, you know, an athlete that just won a world championship, like, they're gonna drink it once, toss it to the side, and then get on with business. So you offer, like, a really interesting perspective to all that, and like something that I think will help people. And because even, like, again, assistance, like getting coaching, getting help, like, that's beyond helpful. And I think, like, these are tools. Like, you're like, therapy is a tool. It helps you, like, just work through your map. Maybe you right now, you're not confident, like, reaching out to certain friends, or like you can't, maybe you're in such a dark place that you can't sit down and, like, logically work through those things, and you need help. Then you know, it's probably a good time to reach out to a therapist and work through those things, because at the end of the day too, like I was saying earlier, like, things could be much more worse. Right now you just have depression and a headache, and but then before you know it, that headache and that depression is going to turn into an argument at work, or into, you know, a blown assignment at work. You're fired, and now you have, you know, no money or whatever it is. no referral, and it's just going to keep spiraling out of control. So,
right.
Like yesterday, even literally, like you talked about commercials yesterday. In a commercial, I heard a saying that was like, their slogan was like, "We catch the small things before they get too big," or something like that. And I think that's like, I think you could say that's the same situation with therapy, right? Like if someone has like I said, I struggled with behavioral issues when I was younger, and like I'm glad I had people that helped me work through those too. But if you have a behavioral issue right now and you have like a bad temper and you're already starting to butt heads with a lot of different people, like the moment you get more responsibilities and you're starting to deal with more like dominant personalities at a higher level of work, like things could get bad really quickly. So I think that's like therapy could definitely help a lot of people.
No, it's definitely, I mean, I know as we're wrapping up, definitely, I mean, I think it's for people to take it as a tool. It's take it as a tool, and then there's the other piece too of like finding someone who you can connect with, finding being, and I know it can be challenging because especially as being a bilingual therapist, as a male bilingual therapist, there's not many of us out there, right? So, but where there's a will, there's a way. Just like I really like the analogy you talked about earlier, man, about like le buscas el modo to try to figure something out, right? Like and whatever it might be. We got to invest in our mental health because it has an impact in everything and anything we want to do. Whether it's you're looking to move up in your career, you want to improve your family dynamics, you want to get along better with people, whatever it might be, you need to really invest into that. As we were talking about like resources, and I have a private practice here. I'm definitely I like to provide out my information, man. If anybody's out there interested in even having a 10-15 minute conversation with me over the phone, or see if it's something that could be a match for you, I'm here to provide services. I can be reached at 707-908-5524 or at my email address alonso.medranomft@gmail.com.
Yes, perfect. So you guys, it was a great conversation, and I hope you guys learned a lot about where Alonso's coming from, because like I said, I've known him for a while, and this private practice thing came up a few years ago, and he's definitely a great person to reach out for help. Luckily, like I've said before, we all need some sort of coaching, some sort of guidance, and if you find yourself hitting yourself, bumping your head on the same problem over and over again, and you think it has to do with something internal, I think it'd be good to reach out to him for guidance. Luckily, like I've said before, I've had a lot of people help me out. A close family group that's always called me out on my stuff, and at a certain point just going through the school of experience. But sometimes that's the slower route. You know what I'm saying? I think I could have been there in a much more efficiently and effective way if I would have reached out earlier. And I think just facilitation and an objective third point of view is very helpful a lot of the times. And we all need that, and we all need to stop problems while they're small, because a lot of the times, like we've learned the hard way, but before you know it, like that small problem just keeps on growing because you're not checking it, and maybe it's your ego, maybe you're in denial, just as from a bad habit, and saying before it could be too late, or you get hit, and then you get hit with you have to pay tuition into the school of experience, like people say, and that bill's much more expensive than just reaching out to someone and getting some help early on. And Alonso's just like you've seen, like he's a solid and just caring individual, and he's like really well educated, and just all around. It's not just like in his practice, and he's not just going to be dropping sequences at you, but he's aware of what's going on like culturally, and what's been like, he knows the history really well. And like when you brought up the thing about the conquista, and then I was like, man, I have a whole theory about that, and I've talked about that at length with a lot of people, you know what I'm saying, and how that's like divided us culturally a lot as well. And like it's good that you're coming from, you have a very big point of view, you know what I'm saying, you have or a big field of view, I should say. You're looking at a lot of different factors and taking those into consideration when you listen to people. And I think I'm glad, and I wish you like a ton of success with this practice, because you've already been going to bat for a lot of people here in Napa for a long time. So I think you're going to help a lot more people in the community and than you already have. And I don't know if do you want to mention a little bit about the building? Because like you brought it up earlier, kind of what it's called, and like kind of what they do
most
in
definitely.
general.
Yeah. So I'm currently utilizing, this is actually the office space. This is the space that I utilize. I'm here on 2020 Jefferson Street. The location is actually for a nonprofit organization, Expressions of Hope. They're also another great entity doing a lot of great work here for those that are on, for the youth that are in foster care system, as well as foster care parents. Just a ton of resources here. And I mean, I think, it's a quite appropriate place to be at, where, they're doing, as we were talking about that collective idea, man, of like, getting help from many different places. I mean, this is how it should be, where you go to one place and you can get support with all these other things. But yeah, this is where you'll find me, and feel free to reach out.
Yeah, and no matter what problem you have, in your life, like there's over 100 nonprofits here in Napa. Pretty sure it's over 200 nonprofits here in Napa, but it's a small community, and people are like you said, you've got your hand in so many different things, right? With the JJC, we're here in this building, and then Camille Creek.
Right.
So like every person that you tap into within like these services and these nonprofits, like they can help you with another problem. You know what I'm saying? So it's like literally just reaching out to one local leader can put you in contact with many local leaders. And like I know that sometimes when you're going through something, you might feel like you're the only one going through it, but that's not the reality. Like we all deal with very similar problems, and you don't have to feel alone, because there's a lot of support, especially here in Napa County, and not just in the whole county, but in the city of Napa. There's, I'm saying, like on this street, there's plenty of organizations that'll help you with whatever you're going through. We talk about like domestic violence, like foster care, substance abuse, whatever it is. There's a nonprofit that is willing and able to help you. They're all bound to confidentiality, and I'm saying, it's just getting help can seriously be the first step to breaking a generational curse. So if you're interested in being that person who puts their foot down and says, hey, like, my mom got abused, but I don't want that for myself, and you need support making that happen, then you can step into that yourself. You can be that person that breaks that curse. So there's a lot of help here in Napa. Alonso is one of those local leaders that provides great help, so definitely tap in with him. And as always, I'll be here too. And so anything you guys need, feel free to let me know. Feel free to let Alonso know. And, I hope this interview podcast, I hope you can take away some great lessons from it.